Many people, when they come to Torah, they read in the scripture not to wear fabrics made of diverse sorts of fibers. Now, that word in Hebrew or Aramaic is Sha'at'nez. Some people in Judaism began to just simplify it and say, well, this just means wool and linen. But the word itself shows us that that's not true. The word Sha'at'nez is an acrostic of three different words from Aramaic: shua, tuvai, and news. Now, each one of these, none of them means anything about wool and linen spun together. It's just any bit of fibers, any type of fibers, any strands woven together that are of different or diverse sorts. In fact, the old concordance before like 2012 or 2015 actually had the definition as any two different types of fibers spun together. Now, the modern translation was updated very recently in the last 10 years to be because it was influenced by Judaism. And Judaism teaches, well, this only means wool and linen, but it doesn't. In fact, let's take a look. I want to point out here that the rabbis agree that the word Sha'at'nez is made of these three different words. It's an acrostic of these three different words. Right here in Leviticus 19, verse 19, it says, you shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your livestock breed with another kind. You shall not sow your field with mixed seed, nor shall a garment of mixed wool and linen come upon you. Now, let's look at this. This word here that they say is wool and linen is actually not wool and linen. It's the word right here, Sha'at'nez. Right here, the modern translation in the BLB concordance has been updated to say of linen and wool. That is not actually what this word means. Now, we just saw it's an acrostic of three different words, and none of them say linen and wool. This is a Judaism insertion of the understanding. Let's look. Even right here, they used to have like a fabric of diverse sorts, but at least it says here mixed stuff, fabric of mixed weave. There's no implication whatsoever that it was only linen and wool. Why did the rabbis begin inserting this presumption? Well, what were the two primary factors or fibers used to create clothing items back in the day when this was written? Of course, wool from sheep or goats and linen. Like those were the two main fibers. They didn't have all the polyester, nylon of the fabrics of today. They weren't thinking of frequencies, people. See, God is simple and he meets people where they are. He wasn't protecting them from frequency. He was protecting them he was teaching them a lesson. He was giving them a lesson to learn obedience and holiness. Notice how we're not supposed to mix the seed or the animals. It's for purity. The clothing is in the same verse, the same section. It's about purity. And when I asked Yahweh, what does it mean? He said, Mel, when you clothe yourself each morning, I want you to remember you are pure and holy to me, separate from the world. All the things you put on are to remind you of that, just like the priestly garments are to remind them of Messiah. Now let's look at one other verse. Right here in Deuteronomy 22, we see this. You shall not wear a garment of different sorts. That is the word Sha'at'nez, such as wool and linen mixed together. So he gives an example of wool and linen. Sha'at'nez does not mean wool and linen, or of course there would be no need for an explanation here to give an example of two different fibers that could be put together. It's not the only two fibers, right? This word simply is an acrostic of three different words, meaning any mixed fibers. Wool and linen are the primary fibers that were used at the time the scripture was written. And let's look in scripture. We can see right here that the word Sha'at'nez here, do you see the agenda? Last verse, they tried to say this was linen and wool. Here they tell the truth and say it's a garment of diverse sorts, meaning any two fibers of diverse sorts. They didn't have polyester or nylon. They weren't even familiar with cotton in the region of Israel back then, right? So they wouldn't have known anything but these two fibers, well, primarily. So, like, the truth is that Sha'at'nez really just means a garment of any diverse source. And here's the word for wool, and here's the word for linen. Notice how none of these words are in the acrostic of Sha'at'nez. Wool and linen. Wool and linen. So we have a word made of three different words, Sha'at'nez. They could have, if it was a wool and linen only, they would have inserted one of these words for wool and linen in this acrostic word they were already forming. But no, this acrostic word is comprised of three different words, which simply mean like woven, spun fibers. So don't let anybody fool you, because I know when I prayed about it and I asked you to pray about it, it wasn't about frequencies. Maybe there's natural consequences, but God had a bigger picture, a simpler picture, a purity teaching for us. His lessons aren't, oh, don't wear mixed fibers because you'll have frequencies. No, don't wear mixed fibers because for example, when you wear your tzitzit, I want you to remember to not go after the harlotry of your own heart. These aren't magic little fringes right? They don't do anything magical for us. They remind us and are teachings for us to remind us not to go after our harlotry of our own heart. When I dress myself in fibers that are 100% this, or this is 100% cotton, this is probably 100% polyester, these are 100% cotton, my socks are 100% cotton and elsewhere. What it does is remind myself, today I will live 100% holy and pure for Yahweh Elohim. You guys, we complicate things. We put stupid stumbling blocks for people. God wasn't going to teach the people in the wilderness about frequencies. He was going to teach them about purity and being his people. Let's stop making things more complicated than they are. I love you all. And just remember, the final teaching that Sha'at'nez then was reduced to becoming wool and linen was taught by Judaism to simplify, because they don't really care about the truth in the heart of Torah. They want things just kind of in checklist, black and white form. If I didn't commit adultery, I'm fine. If I don't blend wool and linen, I'm fine. But the heart of the law is what we're supposed to be following, the spirit of the law. Love you all.